Welcome in, ladies and brothers. Today we are going to be talking about the sun and the story circle. This one is probably going to take us some time. So I want you to sit back, relax, get comfy, because I plan to be here a while. There is some cool stuff I want to walk through. Let's begin. So, first and foremost, if you've been following this channel as me being a screenwriter, teacher, man, maybe I'll put it over here. Just make it nice and big. So this should be a pretty familiar symbol to you. Let me make 100% sure I'm in. Oh, I'm in frame so good. Okay. So this is a story circle, the tool in which one can look at writing a screenplay, structuring a screenplay. So if one was going to structure a screenplay or structure any story, you are going to have 8 fundamental beats. And you can see many a video of me discussing these 8 beats, how they work in a story, all of this. Now, in a story, you also have these 4 quadrants here, right? As we can see, we have kind of our starting quadrant here, and then we travel around the circle this way as the story takes place. And you could separate these 4 slices of our pie here into the 4 acts of a story, into the 4 movements of a story. Could be another way of thinking about this, right? Where we have Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. And what happens in a story, in a movie, in a 120-page screenplay, these sorts of mediums, we meet our character, they set out on their adventure, they go down. I like the way that a story circle is showing a story in this circular pattern rather than just a straight line, because you are going down into the chaos as the story goes, right? Our character is starting in this good place, and you could split this and you could also say this is kind of the light side and this is the darker area, right? Act 2, we really get into the meat of the story. There's a ton of opponents here, a ton of problems, a ton of villains to conquer. We have our midpoint, which is usually a dark climax that is mirroring the good climax in the end, right? We win in the end, but halfway through, to feel that full pull on the downward side, we have this big loss, and then we come back up. I've made many videos on this structural flow here, and just to add a little more character, let me say new problem / opportunity. You could say decision to act, decision to go on the adventure. Get goal, find goal, pay heavy price, and then essentially solve final choice, final climactic choices here, sort of choice. And then we have the 8, which is the change. So again, this is usual, pretty boilerplate stuff. Now, how does the sun get involved is the question here. So we see these 4 quadrants here in a story, and we kind of have our character that goes around those 4 quadrants and returns back to the top. In the same way, you can think about these 4 quadrants and this whole circle as the sun's journey through the year. So you could say that each of these 4 quadrants are the natural 4 seasons that we have with the sun, right? So let's say we have spring, summer, fall. Notice that fall sends us down our circle here. Winter, and then ultimately back to spring, okay? Now, what's also interesting is the symbology that's been used for the sun throughout time, in that this cross symbol, you've seen, there's some people that use this symbol, or this is a big symbol that's used for the sun, like the circle with the dot in it. But you also have this symbol where you have like the cross quadrants in the circle. You also can have this symbol. What's interesting about the cross as an expression of the sun, you also, maybe you've seen it like this too. You can have like a circle in there. What's interesting about the cross and its symbol of the sun is you have the 4 seasons represented by this symbol, where you have spring here, summer here, fall, the shadows are longer. In the fall and the winter, shadows are shorter in spring and summer. And so a way to make a sun circle, a year circle, or a story circle can also be to elongate this bottom piece, because again, what's happening down here? This is your dark climax. This is where winter is, where we're in the deepest dark, right? What's interesting, so if you take summer, fall, winter, spring, and you then overlay that vibe, that feeling, that energy in the different elements of your story, of your screenplay as you're writing it, your story starts in the summer. Your character feels like they know who they are. They feel like, okay, things are kind of working for them, blah, 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 blah. Then when things really kick off, there's a problem, there's an opportunity, this sort of thing, we go into the fall, where things are kind of getting creepy now, and like there's enemies and there's opponents and there's traps and webs and these sorts of things. And then what's interesting about this point here is, same down here, this sort of transition from fall to winter, this sort of thing, is where a lot of the times you learn what it is you needed to learn in this depth. And a lot of times in your year, right, as you are going around the sun's journey each calendar year, a lot of lessons you might find here and in this area. Why? Well, because when it's not awesome and great and sunny and warm, and it's cold and it's dark and you don't know who you can trust, there's where your lessons are, right? In your darkness, this is the dark part here. In that darkness is where you learn those lessons. This is why also you see this correspondence with big picture. If you're using one story circle to think about an entire screenplay, big picture, you could consider your act 3 of 4, the winter act, the dark act, the act where things went so wrong before. Now we're just trying to survive to get to spring, even if we learned our lesson, right? A lot of times in a story, you see it where a hero or a character, they learn their lesson down here in the dead of winter, but that doesn't mean they don't have to go through the winter. So a lot of times you get this learning or this eye-opening moment happen here, and then there is still the hardship to go forward for until you can then get to spring, which is where newness happens, right? We thought we knew everything, Act 1. That lie, whatever we were believing, was broken. Now we see truth. Now we must suffer through the truth that we see through the winter time, imprinting that lesson upon us, let's say, and then we can get to spring, where we can finally make final climactic choice and win the day, end the story, this sort of thing. And so the sun is literally going on this clockwork 4-quadrant journey every single year. And I think too, part of the reason I'm thinking about this a lot right now is that it's the beginning of January, right? Which is supposed to be the new year, which would be somewhere, let me see here, consult the notes. That would be, right here-ish, right? So we're just in the dead of winter here. Why is this the beginning of the year? That doesn't make much sense. The real true beginning of the year makes a lot of sense for it to be here. But what you might notice in the story, and this is very cool, and I got some more stuff to show that's gonna add to this. But what's interesting that you see in the sun's journey, let's say, starts here. Spring starts, summer, fall, winter. A story begins here in the summer and then goes down. A story, the act 4 is spring, where things finally turn around and become new once again and you win. Act 1 is the summer. And then you go into the fall, you go into the hardship, right? The big chunk of the middle of the story is the hardship part, right? Where the characters are dealing with opponents and learning lessons, clearing illusions, finding truth, finding what they're seeking, both within and without. And then you climb back up. You use the lessons that you learned, and you complete your story. Now, what's interesting about this sun's journey here is that if you look at this here, you might have seen me with this little thing. This is from universaltruthschool.com. This is Santos Bonacci's chart. Essentially, it's much simpler than it looks. What this is spring is here, as you can see. Let me actually, I'll just hold this too close like this. So he has spring here, as you can see, gold and spring. And then these are the constellations of the zodiac here, right? So we have Aries in the beginning. Aries is connected to the head, the cerebrum in the head. Taurus, the bull, connected to the cerebellum. Gemini, the throat, the lungs, this sort of thing. And then these are the constellations of the zodiac. I made a podcast about this if you want to go see. And they go around this in a circle. And so when I found Santos Bonacci's work, universaltruthschool.com, and this work, and he was using this chart to combine essentially different areas of study, where he has the chakras mapped here, he has the zodiac belt that all of the sun, moon, and planets are moving through. The sun, moon, and planets, just to reiterate for the 1,000th time for everybody who thinks that the stars and stuff above us are random, the sun, moon, and planets move through an ecliptic belt that only goes through these constellations here. Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. That's where the sun is moving. And right now, we should be in here, in Capricorn, if I'm correct. No, yes, we are in Capricorn. Kneecaps, Capricorn. And so also, on this chart, he has the actual dates listed. You can see this is why I got this one too. He's got the dates, essentially where the months would be, right? So March 21st, which would be spring solstice, begins the month, and then he has the next one, next month, this kind of thing. Now, are these like full and complete without error and all of this? Not necessarily, but I kind of like the fact that they are very clearly one man's iteration of what's going on, because like you can follow the source and he's taking all of these symbol sets and trying to combine them together. Now, and I might actually bring out the big boy for this one. What you notice in these different phases, if you're breaking this down further from, let's see if this works. press again. Okay. Oh, that's not going to be right either. I have to do it. Bear with me, everyone. Like that. Yeah. Something like that. Okay, it's getting worse and worse. Let me show you his big chart. This one's way better. All right. Can I even set this up? Yeah. Okay. Oh, shoot. Okay. Please don't fall. This is the cheapest whiteboard ever. We'll see if this all holds. Okay, can you see that? Sort of. Let me move camera just a little bit so you can see. Okay, so I want you to notice here, oops. Okay, why is it being so lame? Yeah. Okay. Stand up tripod. Okay. So here's the big version of this poster. I pulled this out because I want you to look at how he has these different constellations. Each constellation has its own like symbology that's attached to it, and he has distilled this very simply, which I think is very cool, where Aries, the beginning of the year, is the infant, I am. Taurus is the baby, I have, right? Where the year is growing as we're going around the chart, right? We're in spring as the year is maturing. We are all going through that yearly journey. What's our journey for that year? The baby, I have. The child, I think. Cancer, the adolescent, I feel. Leo, the teenager, I will. Virgo, the adult, I analyze. Libra, marriage, I balance. Scorpio, sex, I desire. Sagittarius, knowledge, I see. Capricorn, experience, I use. Aquarius, idealism, I know. Pisces, submission, I believe. And then we go back to the infant. What I think is so cool about this, I am, I have, I am, I exist, I have, I think, I feel, I will. It's literally like a maturity happening through each year. And what's interesting about this in regards to the story circle is, remember I said, this is where, in the summer, is where the story begins. With the adolescent, right? So when you're hopping into that adventure story for the first time, right? Where is Frodo? Frodo is kind of in this adolescent mode, hanging out in the Shire. He's not really sure what he wants to do out there in the world yet. He doesn't want to go anywhere necessarily, but he kind of, he's in this space. He's in this adolescent space. And then he gets into the teenager I will space, right? The ring comes to him. We need to actually commit to this and do this. So now he is in this I will state, right? He's going off on the adventure. Then I think if you think about this final piece as the climax of Act 1, because each act has its own climax, other people call that break into two. You might hear a lot of screenwriting people talk about that. It's climax Act 1. Every act has its climax. So his adult I analyze Virgo moment is when he has to make the choice to not wait for Gandalf at Bree. Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo takes the ring. He's supposed to meet up with Gandalf at the inn at the Prancing Pony in Bree. He gets there. Gandalf isn't there because of Sauron, and now Frodo has to make an adult choice He has to decide what he's going to do. He can't listen to Gandalf now. Gandalf's gone. This new man has come forward, Strider. He doesn't know if he can trust this person, but he needs to make a choice now. And so he makes a choice to follow Aragorn and then goes forward. And what's interesting is the climax, once you go through the fall, you go through here, and I think what's very interesting is at this point here in Pisces, he has submission, I believe, right? From an arc perspective, we have this character that is growing and changing throughout the course of their story. And you can think about that story like a year, right? So at this point, let's say that, remember, this is the winter section, right? Act 3 of 4, midpoint, then we have that pain here. Another way to think about this is in The Dark Knight, Rachel, spoiler alert, dies at the midpoint. Huge turning point for Bruce Wayne. Then his winter, his Act 3 of 4 is Harvey Dent starts off in this act here in the hospital, and then by the end of this act, he becomes Two-Face, right? So things are continuing to spiral out of control for Batman, though he realized who Joker really is at the midpoint, right? He realizes that he's not this normal criminal. He realizes that he's not just out for money, that he is doing something else, that he is the philosopher criminal, right? So this submission part, I think, is really interesting because right after the submission, I believe you get to the infant again. And thinking about Act 4, the final act, coming up to the final climax of the story, completing the whole snake. The hero becomes the child again. They believe in themselves again. They have let go of their worry. They have let go of their fear. They have let go of their expectation. They have let go of all of these things. And now they can grow into the new version of who they are in the spring. As spring comes and the world becomes new again, so does our character. And they turn and face their darkest enemy now that they have faced themselves, and the story can end. And so this is really the Okay, so why am I telling you all this? Well, the reason for this, the reason for understanding the connection that okay, so what's actually the purpose of me telling you all this? This here, what you've seen so many times on the channel in the past, this is a very black and white mechanical version of an organic movement of life that has a lot of layers to it. A lot of layers to it that as of now, I have given just this frequency, just this angle. Okay? What I'm trying to show you is that ultimately you are in every single calendar year. You are in your own hero's journey if you choose to live in awareness of the changes that are taking place and the opportunities for change that happen in front of you that you can choose to move towards. See yourself in a new way. Surrender and submit to the truth so that you can become the infant again, so you become like a child again and have a great springtime. So what I'm showing here, character 1, new problem, decision, get goal, heavy price. Story is so much, it's such an integral touch point of all these different fields of study. And I think it's very important that we are not getting lost in the very low frequency business that exists around story in 2025. I want to be in a space of knowing, of really seeing this stuff for its fullness and understanding that when I draw that story circle, right, some guy named Dan Harmon did not invent this. He's showing you a very simple and basic version of a much, much, much deeper idea. And the more that you can get a sense for the full color of that idea, then you're able to make and create out of that space rather than putting yourself in a box that makes everything mechanical and black and white, right? You want to feel, and this is also why it's so nice to feel, even if this is just a simple, practical, write your story video, even if all, like this, the feeling of your different acts can be super helpful in getting that in setting the tone, right? Because we're not just writing story beats, we're setting tone, we're getting feeling, we're creating color and movement. And when we're doing that, we have to think about more than mechanical story beats, and we have to understand what symbols mean and how to really, and why important symbols exist and why they stay at the forefront of our culture and psyche through time over and over and over again. That's what we want to get more towards. And so today I want you to think about the sun. Think about the sun and how it goes on its own story circle. It goes on its own journey every year through these 4 seasons. It goes through its journey every year through these 12 constellations, right? Whether you want to not look at those constellations or not is up to you, but that's just what the sun is doing. And the moon and all of the planets, very specifically and intentionally only through 12 constellations, only through the ecliptic belt and nowhere else. We don't happen to have one single planet that's out of whack of the ecliptic belt. Wow, that's crazy. It's almost as if like the world was meaningful. And this was a meaningful, special place, not just at a random point in space in a random, big, massive vacuum, as if God's creation is just a big, massive vacuum of nothing. That's weird. Anyways, I hope you like this video. I hope it's helpful to you. If those posters are interesting to you, or if you want to learn more about them and that work, Santosh Bonacci has a lot of good stuff. Maybe I'll link his stuff below. I'll give like a playlist or something for you to watch. But really, really cool stuff. And to me, it became so obvious because of my obsession with the movement of story, right? It was easy for me to expand into this sphere, expand into more of an astrological sense of the world, being more aware of God's clock because of so much focus here and so much focus on how a story matters and what's the movement of it, as not only the structural mechanical beats, but the feel and the tone and the whole space of it. I'll see you in the next one.